we should be live. And we have 0 viewers, and we're live.
Excellent. Hello, Mr. Bunny.
Hello, Mrs. Bear. Let me go ahead and... that's okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Today
everyone.
is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025.
And today we're going to discuss a few things. First, we're going to discuss well, let me switch to our agenda for today. So first, we're going to look at day one of Trump and his proclamations. Then we're going to talk about the feminization in the workplace and what that means. This is in reaction to Mark Zuckerberg's comments about how we became a neutered workplace. Then, if we have time, we might push this to tomorrow's broadcast, but we can talk about ACA and insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll continue going through those 100 questions that we
You
tried
got
to get
to
through.
know us. 100 questions.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and first switch to Donald Trump's proclamations. I wanted to pop out a chat. Since we're a new channel, I doubt anybody's actually listening to us at the moment live. We have 0 viewers. But if somebody does come in, I want to be able to see chat. How about I worry about that after I see at least one additional viewer?
Excellent. Should we introduce ourselves? We are Tea and Thoughts, a podcast about ideas, a space where we discuss ideas
And T.
and drink tea.
Actually, there was another podcast on Apple Podcasts, I believe. I looked it up before. Naming Hours, that also is Tea and Thoughts. And it's like these 2 ladies, 2 women who also talk about thoughts and drink fancy tea. In our case, we're not drinking fancy tea. I'm just drinking mostly just hot water at the moment.
Oh, I have fancy tea today. I have some jasmine Chinese green tea in a fancy teapot.
Oh, well, look at you. Okay. Let us start with the Donald Trump's proclamations for day one. He signed 26 executive orders, a few memorandums, and I think 1 proclamation. I don't think this is an extensive list because it was put together by ChatGPT today in the morning from publicly available sources. So let's just go ahead and assume that...
Mr. Bunny, I suppose that the difference between an executive order and a memorandum is that an executive order is more official and can be removed by the next incoming president, and a memorandum is just like general notes or
yeah, an executive order is an
guidelines?
actual order to different... so the president is the executive. The president is not able to do anything by proclamation. Like pass any kind of law by proclamation. So none of these are laws. These are instructions based on existing laws to the various executive branch departments. Because you have to remember, the executive branch is basically the entire government, the entire federal government, right? They have the Department of Education, all these departments that you're thinking about, the Department of Defense and stuff like that, they all fall underneath the executive branch. So the executive orders are orders to the various executive departments and executive organizations in the United States, right? Or to just the federal employees in general, the CEO of our company, of our country, so to speak, the president, is making orders to the various departments. By contrast, a memorandum is just basically something like, here's my thoughts about what this should be, essentially.
to all those departments that function under him, or
Yeah.
or to the country in general, and state governments, or what?
Well, the president has no power over state governments.
Okay.
So these are, he can express their thoughts. He can say, this is what we're going to do, and such. But a memorandum is basically like an executive order light, I guess. But for our purposes, let's not think about that too much. Let's just go through the actual executive orders, and I'll comment on how these various executive orders will or will not work out.
Sounds good. Let's jump start then.
Yeah.
Let's jump to it.
You're the dedicated reader, so why don't you go ahead and read the first one?
Executive Order 1, declaring a national emergency at the southern border. Authorized the deployment of U.S. troops to enhance border security.
All right. So,
what are your thoughts on that, Mr. Bunny?
I mean, it seems pretty reasonable, to be honest. That is the purpose of the military, is to secure the border, or rather to protect the United States. So if people are entering the United States and you don't want them to enter, a military would be one of the tools that you would use for that. We do have the Department of Border Control. What is it called? Customs and Border Patrol, right? And CBP. And it's up to the Customs and Border Patrol to really patrol the border. But I don't really see any downside to allowing the military to also control the border, to be honest. I know Democrats were making like a huge deal out of this. The only downside that I see in this is there is a law, or there is like a general rule that is encapsulated into laws and different constitutional provisions that basically states that the United States military is not supposed to be a law enforcement. They're not supposed to perform any law enforcement tasks on United States soil. So the idea is that none of the military is supposed to be used for law enforcement purposes within the United States, short of the president or the governor of a state declaring a state of emergency and martial law. And in that case, the military can be used to enforce martial law, I guess. But generally speaking, the military is not supposed to do any kind of law enforcement on American soil. Since the border of the United States, especially on the Mexican-American border, is obviously on the border between America and Mexico, and since the military would have to be on American side of that border in order to enforce the border, they would be necessarily located on American land, on American property, right? But they would be enforcing laws of the United States. So I think this is going to get challenged. Personally, I think it's not a good idea to challenge this as long as he doesn't push it any further, and as long as he doesn't have, for instance, the military engage in things like CBP stops that they do like inland, like away from the border. If it's really just placing some soldiers on the border itself, purely ethically, I don't see any problems with this first one. And I think we do need to secure the border not because we don't want people in. So like there's the racist and a shitty way to look at this. But then there's also a logical way to look at it. And the shitty way to look at it is like, oh, Trump is pandering to his base above a bunch of assholes who just don't want any immigrants in this country. And it is true, that is his base. But the non-shitty way to look at it is we do want to control the number and the types of people that enter our country, and we do want to know who they are, and before they enter our country. And for the past 4 years, we have been having to our country. Primarily, that is because Trump has closed down during his first administration. He has closed down all the legal avenues for people to get into the United States for various nationalists. Again, appealing to his base.
May I butt in?
Go ahead.
So, first of all, let's not forget that Trump's wall separating America from Mexico actually facilitated immigrants coming in to America, because they literally made roads for these people to follow into America. Second of all, like you mentioned, I am concerned that the presence of U.S. troops encourages violent treatment of immigrants, as in immigrants will be shot on sight.
Hold on. I'm sorry. We appear not to be live anymore. Open YouTube Studio. Oh, strange. We're still learning how to stream, and
Are we live or not live?
we appear to be live again. But there was a big yellow thing right here.
What did it say?
New managing military, blah, 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 close. I do apologize. Everyone, give me a second. We just need to make sure that we're still continuing to be live. And to that end, I just want to make sure that we don't have chat, or rather we do have chat, but we have nobody watching our chat. So I just want to make sure that we're still broadcasting. It appears to be the case, so let's just keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So, should I repeat myself just in case?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to remind everyone that Trump's idea to build a wall actually created physical roads, like paved roads, into America.
Okay, well, they're dirt roads, but nonetheless, yeah.
Okay. That did not exist before Donald Trump's initiative to build the wall, thus facilitating more immigrants coming into America. But to touch on the point about liberals' response to this, I'm also concerned that the presence of U.S. troops encourages violent treatment of immigrants, as an immigrants
Why
will
shouldn't
be
we
shot
treat them
on
violently?
sight. Basic human rights. Everybody.
Why should they have any human rights? They're trying to cross our country into our country illegally.
I don't have a very good response to that. I want to say that it is not fair to kill somebody who is breaking a law, specifically by walking into your country, because I feel that we should be global citizens, not defined, not be constricted by whatever laws were passed back in the day, like defining countries to this or that. I feel like we should be global citizens.
Mexico is not a global citizen. Neither is Brazil. Neither is Canada. All these countries have borders, and they don't allow people to come into them. Why should we be any different when we do have one world government, and then we have like an actual established government where different regions can do their own thing, but then cooperate on a larger scale for, global issues. That's one thing. Like, we can allow people to move, but Mexico is not going to allow a bunch of Americans, for instance, to come in freely into Mexico, or like, especially if not Americans, but imagine if, like, for instance, a bunch of, I don't know, Russians, for instance, or a bunch of Venezuelans, instead of going up the border. What if America said, oh, okay, have like a ship bring a bunch of Venezuelan immigrants to the United States, and then we will just like bust them to the border and let them run across the border into Mexico. Mexico will start shooting them as well.
I see. So I'm just being naive.
Plus, we have a border for a reason. Otherwise, why bother having a border?
Okay, so I'm afraid that if this is the case, then we're just going to have more violent conflicts between
we can have an alternative, right? So the alternative could be all the other countries whose citizens want to come into the United States. Well, clearly they don't want to govern anymore because they're just allowing their citizens to run across the border into our country. So that's fine, but why shouldn't then we own that country? So, like, for instance, if a bunch of Colombians are running across the border and entering the United States, maybe America should just own Colombia. If they think America is so great, how about we just manage them?
That would be interesting. That would be interesting, because I can imagine the difficulty of setting up staging a voting like event in which the country will go out to vote and say, I want to be, an American ward.
Okay, that's not our problem. So the idea is,
how do you decide then? How do you decide you want to take over Colombia because there are way too many Colombian immigrants coming into your country? The government for sure would not say, oh yes, we're giving up governing our country.
Yeah, but who cares? We have nukes.
Giving up our sovereignty.
Yeah, we have nukes. Why shouldn't we say, too many of you people are coming into our country illegally. In exchange for us hosting all of your people, we want your land. Give us your land. For every person that comes in, like, if I was Trump, again, like I said, I hate the fucker, but I probably would be equally assholey. My answer would be, if I was president, I would be like, that's fine. Anybody who wants to come in from your country into our country can come in. But for every person, we're going to take your overall population of your country. We're going to take the square mileage of your country. We're going to divide your square mileage by the population of your country. And for every single person that comes into our nation, for any fucking reason, we're just going to take away that much territory from your country and make it our own.
I see. Okay. That's a solution I didn't consider.
Because
it's an interesting solution
because
that's gonna result in the governments of those countries going to battle, I think, or going to war, or maybe not. Maybe I'll be surprised.
I mean,
and they won't do anything.
How long do you think?
And they'll be like, "Oh, that makes total sense."
How long do you think a war between Colombia and United States will last, and especially if the United States is willing to bomb the shit out of them and commit human atrocities?
I don't know. It really depends on
a day.
I don't know.
About a day.
It really depends on how much Colombians love their country.
About a day. If we're willing to commit war crimes and just bomb the shit out of them and level that country, about a day.
Okay. If you say so.
So the point is, well, what do you mean if I say so? You don't think we can destroy the entire country of Colombia in about a day?
It depends on whether other countries go to the aid of Colombia.
Like who? Who's going to come to the end of Colombia against the United States?
Brazil or...
What are they going to do?
I was going to say, or Russia or China.
Why would they defend Colombia? Why would they risk a nuclear war with the United States over Colombia?
What about the Vietnam War?
In Vietnam War? No. In Vietnam War, we were trying to be nice. We were we weren't trying to be nice. There was a bunch of atrocities that happened in the Vietnam War, but we weren't wholesale trying to exterminate them as a country.
What use is to you of totally devastated land as a country? What use would it be to have a totally...
It'll recover in 50 to 100 years, and we can have some land. The point is that I have this kind of attitude towards this because what pisses me off the most is the kinds of people that are... Trump was right about this. They're not murderers and they're not rapists, and they're not mental patients. But what they are is, for the most part, pieces of shit. This is why most people who come from other countries to the United States illegally, as soon as they become legal in the United States, like most of the South Americans, as soon as they become legal in the United States, the very first thing that they petition or the very first thing that they agree and change their mind about is illegal immigration. So if you ask anybody who illegally immigrated to the United States from another country, they will be like, "Oh no, we should close the border." Because these people, they're not fleeing the United States for purposes of because they believe in the United States, they believe in the values of the United States. They're coming here for money. They're coming here for economic reasons. They don't love the United States. They love the money that they can make in the United States. And perfectly honestly, I don't want those people here. I want people who actually love America, not people who just want to take money from America. Don't that kind of sound like Donald Trump there?
Okay, I want to say that, I agree they're a bit of economic opportunists. But
this doesn't define every single Mexican or every single South American, by the way. Just the ones that are illegally coming here for those purposes.
And they hardly bring intellectual skills to the table, right? Frequently they're bringing grit and backbreaking labor skills.
Whatever.
Is that true?
Yeah, they're bringing labor.
Manual labor.
Manual labor. For the most part, these are not intellectual workers. But that shouldn't matter, to be perfectly honest. I don't think that actually is the key difference here, or the key concern here. My key concern is, why are they coming? Are they coming to United States because they love United States, because they love freedom of speech, because they want to carry guns, because they want to speak English, because they want to, think that George Washington was a fucking god, which, he wasn't. But anyways, The man had flaws too, but it was pretty awesome. But the point is, are these people coming to United States because they love United States and they want to be American? Or they're coming to United States to stay in their little ghettos and hang out with other people who are exactly like them, not learn English at all, speak their own language, and just make more money here than they can make in their own country? And if the option is the second, then why do I want them in America?
True. You make a valid point. The resources in their countries are strained, and they are looking for more resources. Presumably,
no, I will
insecurity.
strenuously disagree with that. I will strenuously disagree with that. Any of the countries that we're looking at, like in South America, have plenty of natural resources. They have plenty of natural resources. Look at Colombia, look at Argentina, look at Brazil, any of these nations. Look at Mexico, for God's sakes.
Yeah, but we hardly have actual people from South America coming to us, except for maybe Venezuelans and Colombians. Because
why do you say that?
We should look it up. We should see, because people from those other countries have supposedly a more developed government where they're able to feed their people and manage.
Why do you assume that it's all
violence.
about food? Why do you think it has anything to do with food? Like, for instance, in the 80s and the 90s, when we were streaming into our nation a shit ton of people coming from Mexico, again, nothing against those people. Why do you think they were coming here? Do you think they were coming here because they were starving in their own country?
Presumably they had worst food in their country, and they were looking for better or more food, or more food.
Are these nations incapable of growing food? Like, is there something physically wrong with the land that they're occupying?
No.
So the land that they're occupying is perfectly productive and nice, right?
It's perfectly arable, yes. It's very much jungle, it's green, and they can grow things.
Okay, so if they can grow things, all of their problems stem from their own inability to organize themselves.
To govern.
And to govern themselves.
And to cooperate with one another.
So why would I want a bunch of uncooperative bastards coming into my nation?
Okay, fair. I see your point.
So what I'm saying is, if these nations are really in trouble, my program, if I was the king of the United States, would be to say, okay, we're going to do reverse colonialism. And reverse colonialism means you want to become part of, you want to be an American, you want to have riches, petition your government to become an American colony. And then over a period of 30 to 50 years, we will provide you a program that your country will have to complete to modernize, to improve, to match us economically. So that way your people, for instance, Colombians and Americans, make roughly the same amount of money. So then when we merge our countries together and people can freely travel between the United States and Colombia, for instance, right? There is not a huge exodus of people from Colombia going into the United States for economic opportunities, because the economic opportunities would be equally available in Colombia. So the way the program would work is, for the first 30 to 50 years, the travel would be unidirectional from United States to Colombia. American businessmen, American people who are looking for a frontier, right? Mm-hmm. We no longer have a frontier in America, right? So people who don't fit in quite with our culture, people who don't fit in quite with the standard American, corporate model of a human being, back in the day, like in the 1900s, I guess, could just go out west, right? This is how we developed the frontier. 1900s and 1800s, people would go out
1800s,
west.
1800s, you mean?
Well, I mean...
The 1865 edict or whatever, the something acres and a mule.
Yeah. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, if you remember why Hollywood is where it is, right? Why is Hollywood where it is?
I don't know. Oh, it's out west because it's away from everyone else, where people can't enforce their patents.
Okay, but what does that specifically mean? Right around the turn of the century, Thomas Edison, who is a known thief of ideas, generated or created a bunch of patents related to movie production and movie cameras, film cameras, right? So to produce movies, motion pictures, you would need to pay Thomas Edison royalties on a bunch of patents for film production. But the kinds of patents that he had were, pretty simple. So anybody can actually build out a camera, and a bunch of companies have built out film cameras. But the large film studios, or film studios in general, wouldn't be able to use those cameras without paying Thomas Edison a bunch in royalties, in patent royalties. So what they did is they moved out west. So a lot of early days movie industry was kind of like an evolution of Broadway, and it was based in New York. And then they moved all the way across the country to California, to like the LA area, and essentially started Hollywood there, because it was the furthest they could go from Thomas Edison, who was based in New York, to prevent him from enforcing his patents. Now, of course, legally he could still enforce his patents by going to court when you produce a movie. But how would he know how many cameras you would use, for instance? If his patents are per camera, like on per camera use, and you can only, he would have to literally send agents into your movie studios to catch you in the act of using a camera that wasn't properly authorized and registered. There was no other way to check it. So the frontier at that point was California, because a lot of movie studios moved out of California to basically run away from patent law.
Oh, fascinating. I did not know that.
And that was the frontier, right? So California was the frontier of the United States for a long time, and this is why we are right now the technological frontier, and a lot of innovations happen first in California and then propagate back into United States. But even California in today's day and age is kind of stuffy. It's kind of stodgy. It's it's too law abiding, I wouldn't say. So America needs a new frontier to explore. We haven't figured out how to explore space yet, but we could create a bunch of frontiers with our reverse colonization program.
Mr. Bunny, does that mean that the new frontier has to be a physical place? Can't you say, well, some corners of the internet can actually be seen as frontiers where people go to exchange ideas that are unique and interesting?
Okay, that's fine. That's for ideas. But what if you want to build a new and innovative farming company? Or what if you want to create a new and innovative, manufacturing company?
I think there's plenty of land in the middle of the country or flyover country where you can go.
Yes, but that land is what? It's not the frontier. Because it's within the United States. It has to abide by all of the standard United States laws and rules and regulations. There's no way to escape the monotony and kind of sameness of the United States. We just drove through the entirety of the United States, and it all looks the same. If you're a young person, or if you're a startup or an entrepreneur who wants to revolutionize something, you want to go to a place that's not within the United States to revolutionize. I mean, you can also revolutionize things in the United States, but it's just that much more difficult because of the burden of laws and regulations. That is the whole point of the frontier. The frontier is this magical place where people who don't fit in with the standard society get to go.
Oh, I see. So what are we looking for? An island somewhere in the world? Like that Prospera Island in Honduras where you can get gene therapy, or what?
Okay, that's an example of that. But why does it have to be an island? Again, what I'm saying is, let's say Colombia votes with 2/3 of their population says, we want to be Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And then America says, okay, well, here's the program for you. So for the first 30 to 50 years, depending on how fast you go through the program, right? So the minimum, let's say, will be 30 years, and the maximum will be 50 years. Or, I don't know, maximum could be whatever, right? You allow our companies and our entrepreneurs to come and live in your nation with no restrictions and no regulation, not no regulation, but no restrictions, meaning they don't need to get visas, they don't need to get any kind of permissions. They just go, and then they can stay there for as long as they want, basically. Mm-hmm. Further, you allow you say that you will abide by our Supreme Court decisions and by our laws, right? So we'll have a set of laws, like federal laws, but also some understood, like kind of base level state laws that we have, are pushed through into your nation, like Colombia. So all of a sudden, Colombia has to have freedom of speech, ability for people to buy and carry guns. All of a sudden, Colombia has to abide by any kind of laws and regulations that the United States passes, right? Or at least on the federal level. And it also has to allow American immigrants to go freely into Colombia, and it has to allow American immigrants or migrants, I guess, or whatever you want to call them, to allow them to buy land, invest in property, invest in corporations and companies in Colombia, right?
And protect their rights.
And protect their rights in the same way that United States would.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that, they will get people with money coming into Colombia to set up new businesses and to create new enterprise. People who may find America too stifling for one reason or the other, and people who might think that Colombia could be a better place for them to experiment with a new idea or a new concept that they want to try out.
Okay.
Right?
I think that very much covers that first executive order. Right?
Okay. It seems like you don't like my idea, but it's okay.
I like your idea. I think that's like a way we can move towards a global, like a one world government. I know people think it's, a terrible thing, but ultimately, when you think about it, it's a far more efficient system if you think about it.
Okay, but why do people hate the one world government?
I think they're afraid of, like, invasion of privacy or something.
Okay, so let's remove all the conspiracy theories and think about it from a different perspective. Look at the world in general, right? So we have 8 billion people in this world, and out of those 8 billion people, you have about 1 billion people. So you take America, and parts of Europe, right? That are living in some parts of other nations that live pretty well and have laws and regulations in their nations that are pro-individual, protect rights, and so on and so forth, right? You can argue back and forth how much you like Europe versus America, but that doesn't matter. The point is that about 1 billion people out of the 8 billion people enjoy a high degree of cooperation within their government and protection of their rights and such. But the majority of the population of the world, so you take India and you take China, for instance, as an example, live with pretty shitty governments, right? So when we say one world government, and let's say that one world government will be democratic, why would I want to align myself with people who have managed to fuck up their own nation repeatedly over and over and over again?
You wouldn't. It's like living in a neighborhood or a block where you have to cooperate with that one house where the grass is overgrown, the house is run down and dilapidated.
Yeah, but it's the reverse though, right?
What do you mean?
It's reverse in the sense that imagine like it's not one house that's overgrown. It's more like we're the nice house and every other house is dilapidated.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
And then you say like, so every other so let's say you live in a neighborhood where there's like 8 houses, right? Your house is nice and clean and well taken care of, right? And then every other house in that neighborhood is run down. And then like some people in that neighborhood say, hey, let's form a homeowners association so we can all decide what are the proper rules for our neighborhood, right? But you look at it and you're like, no, but individually, all of you assholes haven't maintained your houses. Individually, all of you assholes are doing a really shitty job. right? If we organize a homeowners association where each one of you gets a vote and I get a vote, your dumbasses are just going to outvote me every time. So until you get your shit together, I'm not aligning myself with you. So one world government will be a much more
easier proposition.
Yeah, much easier sell if everybody was as prosperous as we are.
I see. That makes sense. I hadn't thought about it. The block of houses where, there are 10 houses and 8 of them are run down and shitty, and there are 2 houses maybe that are nice. It really brings this concept alive to me.
Yeah, the 2 houses have no incentive to align themselves with the 8 houses, especially if the votes are going to be divided equally. Where, it's one thing, but on the other hand...
My math is wrong, because it would be 8 houses, because we have 8 billion.
Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? So 8 houses and one of them, 1 billion.
Yeah.
One of them is good, and the rest of them are bad. But your idea works just the same. So you have 10 houses, 8 of them are shitty, and 2 of them are in good condition, right? So if the 8 shitty houses come to the owners of the 2 good houses and say, you know what, you guys really know what you're doing, right? You don't seem to be spending too much money on your house, right? But you really seem to know what you're doing. And as a result, we want to form a homeowners association, and we want you to be in charge. We want you to tell us how to make our houses look as nice as yours, right? That would be fine. People might say, oh, okay, that's great, because I want to live in a good neighborhood, so surely I will help my neighbors achieve the same level of awesomeness that I possess at the moment, right? If you're a good person, that would make sense, right? But if these people come to you and say, hey, we want to form a homeowners association, and everybody gets an equal vote, then your response will be like, no, because you people suck and you don't maintain your houses. When we have a homeowners association, you're just going to outvote me on every single other thing and probably make me not maintain my house as much so you can feel better about yourself.
Probably. That makes sense.
Or demand me to pay more money for maintenance than everybody else because, you'll claim to be poor or something.
Yeah. I was going to say, what if that one house is the richest one and is the most armed or weaponized, and they forcefully take over the other 8 houses, and by authoritarian powers say, you have to clean up your house and get your shit together and make your house nice.
Okay, so we've done that, right? That's called empire. Britain has done that very effectively in the 1800s and 17, 18, 1900s, right?
Okay,
early 1900s.
And that did not work?
Well, do they have their empire anymore?
No.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm very ignorant about this, I suppose.
Well, it's not ignorant. You just haven't thought about it this way. But what if, again, those houses come like one at a time, right? So you have 2 houses on a street with 10 houses. 8 of them are run down. 2 of them are pretty nice, right? And one of the rundown houses, one of the owners of the rundown houses comes to the 2 owners of the nice houses and says, hey, you guys really know what you're doing. Can you help me? Can you teach me how to do the same? Right? And I'll be part of your small homeowners association of you 2 guys and me and such, right? And then you respond as the owner of the nice house. You respond, oh, okay, that sounds great. Let's form this association, and we'll let you know what to do. And then you can be as awesome as we are, and then you'll join like our association. Like once basically, until you get your shit together, you don't have a say in our homeowners association. But once you're on the same level as we are, you will have a say. You'll have a vote in where we go next, right? Then I think that works pretty well, right? That's how cooperation should work. So in the same manner in America, rather than importing people from Colombia, from Brazil, from wherever, right? From China for that matter. Well, China is a different question, but rather than importing people from South America, for instance, it makes a lot more sense to say, hey, if you are coming to the United States, If you're desperate to come to the United States, so much so that you're willing to run across the Sonoran Desert and get poked by cacti and shit and almost die from dehydration, then chances are it's because your country sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that we're awesome and your country sucks, well, here's some news for you. Your actual physical country, your land, is pretty good. It's beautiful, it's nice, it's productive, you have a lot of natural resources, you have good land.
Mm-hmm.
What sucks about your country is other people in your country, including yourself probably.
Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of culture.
It's just a matter of culture and governance.
Yeah.
So then you say
but governance changes once you change your culture.
Exactly. So then you tell these people, it's like, no, we're not going to allow you into our country. But what you really want out of us, you just don't know it yet. What you really want out of us is our ability to organize and cooperate. And we will give that to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me. The image that comes up to me or comes to my mind when we look at this first declaration, the declaring a national emergency at the southern border, is if we use our block our houses, is having some of the neighbors run to your nice house and you shooting them on sight or electrocuting them or mistreating them. And I just think that's
okay. But the other image.
Let me finish my thought. I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time stringing my thoughts together. It seems unfair to shoot people on sight.
Why not?
Without first telling them, hey, if you want to be like me, do this. If you want to have a nice house like me, do this.
They're not interested. Let's say. They just want to come into your house with their dirty feet and enjoy all the nice things you have until they run them down and destroy them as well.
Okay, well,
what do you do then?
I guess you'll have to electrocute them, or shoot them on sight.
Okay, seems like a logical decision.
You first have to give them a chance.
Why do you have to give them a chance? We already gave them plenty of chances.
You have to. Well, maybe you have to implement that system that you just suggested, where you tell them, here's.
Well, how about we stop them first, and then we'll talk about implementing the system.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because, again, these people are not coming here to make America better.
I understand they're not coming here to make America better. But if you make them aware, and I'm pretty certain that most of them are not aware, that they too can have a beautiful country if they try.
How certain are you that they want that?
I'm not sure. I'm just trying to believe in the human...
I don't believe in the human
humans.
things. I think there is a reason why they're run-down countries.
Well, I am sure that there's enough humans that want a good country and that they can organize themselves at least into having good cities.
Why haven't they yet?
Because they don't know how.
Do you
or they lack imagination. Do you
really think they don't know how?
Yes.
Like what?
I honestly will say I am a naive romantic, and I think that is possible.
What if their culture is such that they just don't want to?
Then they're not welcome in your country.
Okay, so that's why we're putting military on the border.
Okay.
Why do you assume the best of people?
I'm just saying, I'm a naive romantic, and I think it's only fair to give people a non-violent warning.
Okay, but they're literally crossing the border. You can give them a non-violent warning by saying, hey, Donald Trump is now in charge. We're closing the border. Do not come. If you do come, we will shoot you. So just don't come.
Okay. That's fair enough.
Like, nobody says, like, oh, you know what? We're going to put some soldiers at the border, and we're going to be like, oh, they're just there to protect the border. They're not going to shoot you. And then as soon as you try to cross the border, they just shoot you in the face.
Fair enough.
Like, that's not going to happen. That's not actually what's going to... What is even on the table. Like, for instance, I seriously doubt that the military is going to shoot any of these people. I don't think we're going to have anybody shot at the border, like this year, for instance, as a result of this proclamation.
I hope you're right.
Okay, let's say I'm wrong and they do shoot somebody. Why are we not able to stop somebody from coming into our country that is doing so illegally?
I already said that I don't disagree with you. I just think it's proper to put proclamations all over your border walls or whatever saying, make your country better. Do not come into our country. Here's how to make your country better. Scan this QR code.
They don't care. Have they ever asked for help? Have any of these countries ever asked for help? Like, come to America and say, "Don't give us your money, give us your expertise, so we can learn to be like you."
Yeah. I don't know. I'm ill-informed. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's something that, you would have to ask the governments of those countries or people who are in charge. And I'm not privy to that information.
Okay.
Do you think no one has asked for help?
Oh, I'm sure they asked for help, for money.
Okay. Then I'm just really ignorant about what's going on in the world.
They're asking for money. They're asking for food. They're asking for donations. They're not asking for help setting up their system. They're not saying, how can we pass better laws? How can we be better people? They copied a lot of American system already. Like, America created a bicameral legislation. Most of these other countries also have, at least a lot of them have bicameral legislations, and democracy, for instance.
We have a warning on our screen. What does that say?
Let's see.
Sorry, we're having some technical
difficulties. Warning: the stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. We recommend that you use... Oh, I think what's happening is we actually just have... I think if I start doing this, it's going to go up. It's just we have a static picture, and as a result... Maybe our internet is doing not so good. I don't know.
We have to find a good time to stream then.
Oh. Yeah, right there. I don't know. Dropped frames, 15%. That's not great. All right, well, we're not really showing anything on the screen, so I think our voice is going to carry one way or the other.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. We're back to normal.
Oh, good. I know what you mean. I can see in my mind's eye what you mean. It's like when you donate something to people who are less fortunate than you are, and they're like really thankful for the material goods that you provide them, but they tell you to butt out of their business, basically. They're like, thanks for giving me this, but please don't interfere with my life.
Okay, well, if you don't want me to interfere with your life, then you can't expect unlimited donations.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Like, imagine if somebody was like, if a country had a famine as a result of them misusing their land, because they don't believe in fertilizers and they think the fertilizer, like nitrogen-based fertilizers, are the devil's work, and you provide them food to prevent them from starving, and as a result, they don't starve. But then the next year, they still don't use the fertilizers. And you're like, hold on, guys. Like, I'm not going to give you food next year unless you actually try to use fertilizers. And their answer is, no. Don't tell us what to do. Fertilizers are made by the devil. So as a result, we're not going to use fertilizers. By the way, please send us more food.
I see. I agree with you. I am just baffled at the stupidity of mankind, I suppose.
Why stupidity? Why don't you assume that there are people and forces in their countries who benefit from keeping most of their people dumb and poor?
Right.
So it's up to these countries to begin to solve their own problems. Remember what the Bible says: God helps those who help themselves.
Fair enough. I agree.
So, anyways, let's move on, because none of this is on the table. At this point right now, all we're doing is we're just placing we're just assisting Border Patrol with the American military.
Okay.
I think, perfectly honestly, I think that's okay, especially as long as the American military will be working underneath the Border Patrol. Plus, quite honestly, I've known people who are Border Patrol, and I've also known people who are in the American military. And people who are in the American military, in my experience, and this is a small sample, are generally speaking better people, like kinder, nicer, and better people than people that I've known in the American Border Patrol. So
I tend to agree with you on that.
As a result, I think, if anything, this is going to cause a nicer treatment of people running across the border, not a worse treatment of people running across the border, to be perfectly honest. All right.
Shall we move on to
Let's
two?
move on to the second proclamation.
2. Completing the border wall. Directed the Departments of Homeland Security and Defense to finish constructing the border wall.
Okay, well, this one is stupid. I'm a big opponent of the border wall, which might seem counterintuitive from our previous tirade, but I primarily think that constructing an actual physical border wall is stupid. We should have an electronic border wall, high-tech border wall that just has towers positioned every few hundred feet to every 1,000 feet with high-resolution cameras monitoring the border in every direction. As soon as you see some people approaching the border, you alert the authorities. You deploy some automated drones that fly to those people and warn them, saying, please do not approach our border. If you approach our border, we will open fire. Get the fuck out of here.
I see.
Right.
I think it's a good idea, but I also see the border wall, the physical border wall, as a as a gig for a lot of laborers to work in. Maybe they just want to create employment opportunities for more people.
I think just Trump likes to solve problems in the most obvious and the most stupid way possible. So, like I said, he points out all the right problems, comes up with all their own solutions. So,
or the most obvious solutions, like you said.
Yeah.
And he also comes up with the most obvious violations of those solutions, like, oh, you can just bring a ladder and climb over the wall.
So as a result, it's just a dumb. It's a dumb solution to an actual problem that we have. I would say a good problem, but
gotcha. So let's move on. Okay. Number 3, he reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires asylum seekers to wait in Mexico during processing.
Yeah. So this policy is for non-Mexican citizens, obviously, because why else would they be seeking asylum? So or not seeking, the Mexican citizens are not seeking asylum in the United States. What's happening is you have a bunch of Colombians, Venezuelans, people from, especially Venezuelans, I think right now, right? Fleeing their nation, and they're seeking asylum. Sometimes it's political asylum, sometimes it's economic asylum, basically saying we're starving here in Venezuela. I think Venezuela is a better example, by the way, than Colombia. What do you call it? Before, what was happening under Biden and it hasn't started happening under previous Trump, but what was happening is they would go into Mexico. They would pass through the country of Mexico without filing any kind of paperwork, without saying, hey, we need asylum or something like that, because they're not Mexican citizens, right? Mm-hmm. So they're illegally in Mexico just as much as they're illegal when they come into the United States, right? Mm-hmm. So when they enter Mexico, they don't ask for asylum in Mexico. They instead keep going and ask for asylum in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Why don't they ask for asylum in Mexico? It's a country that speaks the same language that they do. It's a wealthier country than Venezuela. They do have food. Mexico is actually doing pretty good, relatively good economically and such. So why wouldn't they ask for asylum in Mexico?
Mm-hmm. They do. Some of them do. But they also have only just a few slots.
Yeah.
Like a quota.
Yeah, they have a very tiny quota. So for all extents and purposes, they don't ask for asylum in Mexico. They just pass through Mexico and get all the way to the United States. And then before this proclamation, they would enter United States, ask for asylum in United States. And after asking for asylum in United States, they would be given a court date, and they would be given a little piece of paper, and then just released into the United States with no background checks, with nobody checking their documents, finding out who they are and stuff like that in any particular way. And because the whole idea was they were supposed to just have a court date. At that court date, they present their case, present their documents saying, this is why I want to come to the United States. This is why I deserve to have asylum. And then a judge is supposed to review it, do a background check on them and shit like that, and then make a decision about whether or not they qualify for asylum, right? So it seems pretty straightforward and actually seems okay. The only problem is that because of how few judges we have and because of how many people are coming, their court dates are years and years and years in the future. It's like sometimes 7, 8 years in the future. So these people can live in our country for a really long period of time with literally no papers, right? No legal ability to work because they're not here on any kind of work visa, right? So they have to work under the table. And the whole idea is that we just let them into our country and then we're like, okay, we'll just hear your case at some point. But I mean, think about it logically. What are they supposed to do in the interim? Like, how are they supposed to feed themselves?
Obviously by working.
By working, but how are they working? They can't legally work.
Illegally.
So they have to work underneath the table. They have to get paid under the table, right? And what does that do? That means that any kind of minimum wage laws, any kind of labor protection laws that we might have get undermined, get violated, because all of a sudden you have a very large group of people who are willing to work, who can be discriminated against, can be paid $5 an hour or something like that by unscrupulous business owners in order to increase their profits, right?
Right.
But what does that do? That undermines the competitiveness of American workers, right? This is what I was saying for years, that what do illegal immigrants do? They undermine the competitiveness of American workers. So when people like Stephen Colbert, for instance, say like, oh, these are jobs that no American wants to do, like farmer jobs, right? Like farm jobs, like berry collecting jobs, right?
Right.
These are jobs that no American wants to do. This is why these are hardworking people and we should let them into our country because they are willing to do things that we wouldn't do. That's not true. That's not true at all. That is a liberal lie. That is one of the reasons why Trump won. Because these people are taking away jobs from Americans. And you can say, well, no American wants to work in the field to collect strawberries for $5 an hour or $10 an hour or whatever they pay them. Right. You're right. For $5 an hour, for $10 an hour, no American wants to work those jobs. You're right. But what about $25 an hour? What about $30 an hour? I'm pretty sure if you pay $25 an hour to an American, they'll work those jobs. I'm sure you can find plenty of Americans. Your mom's friend, right, who's driving for Uber right now. If somebody told him you can go and collect berries for $25 an hour, he would jump probably on that opportunity instead of driving Uber. Right? Your mom drove Uber the other day for few hours. In 3 hours, she managed to scrape up $40.
Like $15 an hour.
Yeah, so that's like $15 an hour. And she has to use her car. She has to use, put miles on her car and all this other stuff, right?
Right.
If somebody was paying $25 an hour to collect strawberries, maybe she would do it.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right? Or maybe somebody else would do it.
Yeah.
So these people are unintentionally, perhaps, undermining the competitiveness of American citizens and people who are here legally. And we're not saying, oh, as a result, we don't want your help. What we're saying, maybe we do need extra people. Maybe we do need extra laborers who are interested in doing farm jobs. But they should be paid based on the rules of our nation. They shouldn't be paid underneath the table 1/2 to 1/3 of what an American is legally required to be paid.
That's true.
And this is not even my opinion. This is
but that would require our American citizens to not be slimy bastards either.
How so?
Wanting to get cheaper labor than paying less than the minimum wage.
But that's why we have laws.
Yeah.
No, but
But they're not always enforced.
They're not always enforced. I understand that, but that's not a problem. We have laws, right?
Yeah.
So people who violate those laws, like for instance, if you're not an illegal immigrant. If you're a legal immigrant, if you come to the United States under some kind of work program, right? And your employer pays you less money than they're supposed to, you can sue them. You can file a complaint against them.
I think I can think of ways in which people can get around these minimum law things or minimum wage things, for instance. Like, can't you just claim that people just volunteer with you and you pay them some small sum for buying food or
Okay, and what are
something?
you doing right now?
I'm making it possible for them to.
No. You're making an exception argument.
Okay.
Can people violate the law right now? Can American citizens right now violate the law of the United States?
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that will be a violation of the law of the United States, and people who do that will go to jail.
Okay. Fair enough.
Why is that a problem?
Okay. It just depends on how.
I mean, why couldn't the employers do the same exact thing with American citizens?
Because they're more honorable.
Who's more honorable?
The employers.
Wait, I'm confused.
I'm definitely confused.
I'm saying what you're saying is, well, even if we pass all these laws and we say like, oh, you can't pay immigrants from, let's say, El Salvador or Venezuela, you can't pay them less than you would pay an American citizen, right?
Right.
And then you say, well, surely they'll just pay them underneath the table and come up with some kind of schema where they can pay them less anyway.
Right. Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Why wouldn't they be able to do the same thing with United States citizens?
Because the United States citizen would be more vocal about.
Yeah, because they have rights.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you give the same rights to a Venezuelan immigrant or an El Salvadorian, why wouldn't they do the same?
They would.
How does that not solve the problem?
Okay. But some of them are so sheepish that they actually don't use their rights.
Are there certain Americans who are very sheepish and don't use their rights?
Yeah, that's true.
So again, what's the difference?
Gotcha. Hey, I need to go use the restroom, so I'll be right back. Shall we read the next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
4, right? Terminating mass humanitarian parole and CBP-1 program. Trump ended specific immigration policies from the previous administration.
Mass humanitarian. I wonder if U4U program is actually. You know what? While you go use the restroom, I'm gonna find out if the U4U program, which is United for Ukraine program, falls underneath this
CBP-1 program.
CBP-1 program.
Okay, I'll be back.
So how would I search that? Okay, let's go to ChatGPT. And let's paste this in. Mass humanitarian parole. Okay, so let's ask ChatGPT. Donald Trump yesterday in an executive order signed an order that eliminates the mass parole program and the CBP-1 program. I'm wondering, does that include the U4U or the United for Ukraine program that offered parole to people fleeing the war from Ukraine? Let's see what ChatGPT says. Okay, so let's erase this bit right here. And we still have 0 viewers, but let's see what ChatGPT says. As of January 21st, 2025, there is no official confirmation that President Trump recent executive order, which eliminates CBP-1 application and certain mass parole programs, have directly impacted the United for Ukraine program. However, given the administration's broader stance on immigration and humanitarian parole programs, there is a possibility that U4U could be affected in the future. Okay, so it could be affected in the future, but it's not affected by this program. I think what they're talking about is primarily the humanitarian programs surrounding. Let me switch over to our list. I think they're talking primarily about the humanitarian programs involved in allowing people to come in from Venezuela and from countries that are affected by economic issues, not by war. In fact, I think in order to actually cancel and end the U4U program, they would need Congress to go behind them, because I think it ties into some of the international agreements that we have with other nations. So don't quote me on that, but in any case, this doesn't cancel the war-related programs, I believe.
Oh, that's interesting.
So this is only for economic reason.
Well, that's good for Ukrainians.
It's good for Ukraine. It's good for any other nation that's right now in a state of war. And I don't think economic refugees should be a thing, to be honest. If you're an economic refugee, then, like I said, what we said here, America should help your country recover economically, but we shouldn't allow you to just come into our nation, because that's not real. Because what's going to happen? Like what every single person from all the shitty countries around the world comes into the United States, making the United States shitty, and then we have like half the world basically be empty because nobody lives there. That seems really silly. These people are coming from very nice geographic areas. What we need to do is improve those areas rather than have everybody come in here.
Right now, it seems like all the immigrants that are coming in are, excuse me, simply taking low wage jobs, and people are benefiting from that.
Yeah, some people are.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to this one. I don't know how to read it. Why is it reading?
Designating Tren de Aragua as a terrorist organization, labeled the Venezuelan gang as a terrorist entity.
Oh, that's like a name of the organization? Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Okay, I don't see what the hell's the point of that.
I do not know what
I think
the
this is just pandering to
is.
his base.
6. Declaring a national energy emergency aimed to expedite fossil fuel infrastructure development.
I agree with this one on principles of national security and the principles of attacking Russia. Basically, this is a way to attack Russia, because most of their money is made with exporting of their oil. So if we can supplant their exports with our exports, especially to Europe, and if we can supplant their gas with our gas, we can save Europe, we can save our friends in Europe, we can improve the world, and at the same time destroy Russia.
I wonder what this means. If it means giving grants or loans to for fossil fuel development.
I think it's mostly like approving development of new or exploration in national territories, like for instance in the
the Permian Basin, or
no, they're already doing that. In like the water. The federal waters off the coast of Alaska and California and some other places, as well as just, I think, streamlining the process for
so it's kind of like
new energy development,
expediting like environmental reports, etc., etc.
Yeah, stuff like that. That's probably what it's going to be. I'm not sure how well it's going to work. We have to remember that under Biden, we are already exporting more oil than we ever had. We're already producing more oil and more gas than we ever had before. This is obviously bad for global warming, but we have to, take Trump aside and his stupid opinions about global warming, which is definitely a thing. We have to realize that China needs oil. Other countries need oil. If they don't get it from us, they will get it from Russia. In fact, they do get it from Russia. And it's better if they get it from us. Because, for instance, Russia constantly spills oil into the ocean from their shitty, gray fleet. And they don't even burn off their gas, right? So the gas that escapes into the atmosphere, when you drill for oil, you also... So on top of oil, there is a bunch of natural gas, methane essentially, and some other propane, so on and so forth. So these, in Russia, a lot of these oil company, what is it called? Rosneft. They don't even burn off the natural gas when they release it into the atmosphere. They're like really horrible at producing oil. They're very dirty oil producers. So if the total amount of oil consumed by the world will stay roughly the same, which I think it will, but instead of them buying Russian oil, they'll buy American oil, that's good for America financially, and it's good for America in terms of its geopolitical positioning because it hurts Russia. And makes China more dependent on us. For instance, if they start buying American oil, because one of the ways Trump is trying to balance out the trade deficit is, rather than barring everything that comes in from China, I think one of the things he's going to try to convince them to do is just say, hey, buy a lot more of our oil, so that way you buy as much stuff from us as we buy from you, and then I won't put in the tariffs.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Is it Alaskan oil that China is buying? That would make sense to me, geographically speaking. Also,
they're not buying as much right now, but I think they will in the future if this goes through.
Also, that's really great. That's really great news. Also, we know that I think we reached peak fossil fuel consumption, unless our population explodes or something like that. We're not going to be producing more greenhouse gases than we currently are. Is that
No,
right?
That's not true. Well, I mean, first of all, they're cumulative, so we're still producing them and they're still piling up in the atmosphere. So it's still bad. We still need to switch. And he did pull us out of the climate accord and Paris. There's the very next one. Withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. So he doesn't believe in global warming because he's a fucking idiot. I hoped that Elon Musk will convince him otherwise out of his own self-interests, but that didn't happen. So as a result, here we are. But the point is, if it's a difference between the same amount of oil being produced by us and sold to the world versus the same exact amount of oil being produced by Russia and then sold to the world, quite honestly, fuck Russia. We should do it.
Sounds good.
Our oil is going to be cleaner and better.
Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
7. We withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. We initiated the process to exit the International Climate Accord.
Yeah, okay. On this one, it looks bad, and he's doing it for the wrong reasons. We should hate him for it. But at the same time, this was never going to be a solution. This is never going to be a realistic solution to climate change. So we need a better, rather than try to figure out how we are going to do Paris Climate Accord, and we need to figure out technology that will allow us to get rid of oil. And we have to remember that most of the oil in the world is not used to power your car. It's not used for your personal car or something like that. It's used for energy production, for electricity production, for factories, for other shit that we do with energy. So for charging those Teslas, right? So what we need is a technological solution for power production, for electricity production, and the rest will follow. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
I wanted to say before we move on is about the climate changing, that we really have to be realistic, that it seems so unfathomable to me that we can't even agree that the climate is changing. And the ways that we try to resolve this problem is by ignoring the problem or denying the problem. And when we do acknowledge the problem, we acknowledge it with new technologies, which is great, but we don't talk about the obvious things like making sure that you're keeping stuff for as long as possible, and that you repair your toaster and not just toss it out because it takes energy to make that toaster or air fryer or whatever it is that you're using, right? Also, that we should have contingency plans for natural disasters that do affect a lot of people as a result of the climate changing, such as the wildfires that are affecting Southern California or Los Angeles. at this time.
Okay, so those contingency plans, though, need to be not... Like, what would be a contingency plan for... like, do you think we don't have those plans?
When I say contingency plan, maybe I'm using the wrong word. We should be aware that they happen and not be like, oh, it's just a scare. We should be prepared with like sprinklers on our roofs, basically, and doing
but sprinklers on the roof do not solve climate change, right? Those are preparations for natural disasters and stuff, which we should do. But we also need to invest resources, specifically intelligence resources, into trying to figure out how to produce power without electrical power, without burning fossil fuels. Because that is the largest production of fossil fuels is not in cars. Cars contribute something like 6%, not even 6%, less than that. The largest producers of greenhouse gases are cows, right? Mm-hmm. Which fart methane, and then methane is an incredibly potent greenhouse gas. Far more so, like cows produce way more greenhouse gases and contribute way more to this problem than cars.
Okay.
Right? And then electricity production. So electricity production and cows are like the two things that...
What are they, 30% of the overall fossil fuel production?
I don't know. I would have to ask ChatGPT or look it up.
Greenhouse gas production?
A lot of the time, they say that transportation contributes like a great amount to... but when they say transportation, people think, oh, transportation means cars.
Personal cars.
Yeah. No, transportation means trucks, like semi-trucks. Transportation also means boats. Like, for instance, those boats that are transporting things from China to United States, right? Mm-hmm. They do not run on nuclear power engines. Mm-hmm. They run on what kind of engines?
Crude oil.
Crude oil engines.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They're spewing CO2 and other gases.
No, but describe for the audience what they actually run on.
Oil. Just crude oil.
Yeah, but not diesel, not gasoline, not refined products that burn cleaner. Mm-hmm. They literally take raw crude oil and inject it into these enormous engines. Mm-hmm. And it runs. How clean do you think that is?
Not very.
Exactly.
And what about jet engines from airplanes? Do those emit?
Those use kerosene.
Okay.
Which, I mean, yeah, they emit also a lot of...
Nowadays, they tell you how much CO2 you're emitting in each flight that you take.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people
do
anything with that data.
Okay, but notice the things that can and can't be done. We notice things that we can and can't easily fix, because people want to fix everything, right? So people say, oh, we need electric jets, we need electric airplanes, we need electric cars, right? No, we don't. We don't need electric cars. Gasoline cars are better in almost every single possible way for the environment because electric cars require you to produce electric batteries, and electric batteries require you to spend a lot of energy manufacturing those batteries, right? Electric cars are more efficient because they don't rely, that's too complicated to explain right now. I don't want to dive into it. But basically the point is, electric cars are not the primary solution that we're looking for. If everybody tomorrow went out and purchased an electric car, we would still have this almost the same exact climate change issue. And we would still be screaming about the fact that climate change is coming.
So we would be disappointed that we did the thing that people told us to do and it didn't change anything?
Well, more importantly, we would spend tremendous amounts of money and effort to accomplish very little to nothing.
Okay.
What we actually need to do is we need to replace oil and petrochemicals in power production, power generation.
How do you do that? Do you go with like dams or like geothermal or like...
Nuclear. Nuclear is the only option. Nuclear is the only clean option that can power the world. You of course have solar panels. Our house, for instance, is not just, we don't just have solar panels on top of the roof. Our house is entirely solar. We do not have a connection to the grid. We are completely off grid. We live in a very remote area. This is why our internet sometimes sucks, because you have to use Elon Musk's shady Starlink. But in any case, it's still the best option. The point that I'm trying to make is it's possible to use renewable only energy in some ways, in some places. But in most places around America, you need external electricity coming from the grid into your house. And that electricity that comes into your house should be made with nuclear power. When all of our electricity is 100% renewable or nuclear, we can still have renewable. We can still have solar panels. We can still have windmills, which Donald Trump hates for no fucking reason whatsoever. But we should also have nuclear, because we need something for the base load. The base load is stuff that's on all the time, right? You don't just want to have electricity when there is sunlight outside or when it's windy. You want to have electricity when it's perfectly still and dark as well, right? So we need nuclear. We need nuclear. We need nuclear. I don't know how to say it any other way. And we haven't been constructing any new power plants.
Because no one wants to take responsibility for them. Is that it?
No, people actually want to build them. There's several companies that desperately are trying to build nuclear power plants. But neither the Republicans nor Democrats are willing to approve it. Trump hates nuclear power plants.
Why is that?
I don't know. He's a fucking moron, that's why. Again, the dude points out some right problems and then comes up with the stupidest solutions possible, like I always say. He hates nuclear power, and he also hates windmills for some reason. But the Democrats didn't do anything about it either. How many nuclear power plants has Joe Biden pushed through?
0.
Exactly. Because Joe Biden has to answer, Trump has to answer to his friends in the Permian Basin and all the people who want to dig for dead dinosaurs for the rest of the days, right? And to the oil companies. And Biden was at least responsible to the Wookiees and all of the people who are like, no, nuclear power is bad. Because you have to understand, like, there's a large contingent of the Democratic Party, the same kind of people who are also anti-vaxxers, who will scream at the top of their lungs that there is a third gender, but by God, we can't have nuclear power. Right?
Gotcha.
So all the extremely left-wing people are also very skeptical about nuclear power. What we need is serious adult people in a room who are willing to seriously invest money, resources, and our nation's energy, like practical energy, intellectual energy, into nuclear power. Remember, like, when America was great, according to Trump, the 1960s and 1950s, we were living in the nuclear age. This is when GE was creating those houses.
Westinghouse.
Westinghouse, I'm sorry. Westinghouse has like this wonderful video on the YouTube where they're like, and this is the house of the future. And they go through this house and they're like, oh yeah, the driveway has like electric cables running underneath the ground through the concrete to heat up the concrete so it'll melt your snow in the wintertime.
Yep.
They were literally just pumping electricity into the fucking ground so they don't have to shovel snow. That's how cheap Westinghouse thought electricity is going to be in the future.
Yep. Dreams.
Exactly.
Hopes.
We need to go back. We need to make that real. If we make Westinghouse's dream real, where electricity is nuclear powered and so incredibly cheap that we can just shove electrical, cables into the ground so we don't have to shovel snow anymore. That's when we're going to figure out a way to deal with climate change. It's not by limiting ourselves. It's the same diatribe that I always have with California when they're like, you should save water. You should take a shorter shower. How about you go fuck yourself, because the residential water usage accounts for less than 5% of all the water usage in the state. 95% of the water goes to the goddamn farmers. How about you tell them to fucking shower their crops a little bit less? And what pisses me off the most about that is that most of those crops are not even crops that are going to the United States. They're highly water-dependent crops for things like nuts, like cashews and
almonds
and shit like that. And all of that stuff gets exported to China. So we're literally exporting our water to China in the form of nuts, which is nuts to me. It's fucking insane that this is allowed to be happening.
And we're growing these nuts in the desert, basically.
Yeah, we're growing these nuts in the desert. We're pouring water, which is a scarce resource in our country, and especially in this region, onto these nuts, and then we are exporting it to China. This is fucking idiotic, and this is what's happening. So we need to solve those problems.
Shall we move on to the next executive order?
Let's move on. Oh, and as just one more aside, when we solve the electrical problem, when we have so much electricity that we can readily just like shove, again, electrical cords into the ground to melt snow, that's when we're going to have enough energy, right? Enough cheap, affordable, and non-polluting energy to desalinate water at scale.
That makes sense.
And that solves our problems with water.
Freshwater shortage is a problem.
Yeah. So going nuclear solves so many actual problems in our nation. And I would change my mind about Trump if he changed his mind about nuclear. But I don't think he's going to, because he's a fucking idiot. Go ahead.
Let's move on to 8. Recognizing only 2 sexes in federal policies. Defined sex based on reproductive anatomy, affecting recognition of transgender individuals.
I don't care. I mean, I think trans people are people with like an actual psychological disorder, and they need psychiatric help, not somebody recognizing their genders. I don't have anything against trans people. I'm sure many of them are really great people, but anybody who's an actual trans person who's not a hermaphrodite. If you're a hermaphrodite, if you were born with male and female organs, I totally get it. Like that fucking sucks. And you need, I don't know how this is actually going to work even for those kind of people, but you do need accommodations, and you're a human being, and you're a good human being, I'm sure. Or if you're not, then, whatever, but you deserve to be treated like a human. And you're clearly not female or male. You're one or the other, and maybe you make a choice and you try to identify as one or the other. That I think that's perfectly reasonable. But if you are like a man and you want to identify as a woman, or if you're a woman and you want to identify as a man, I personally think that you have psychological problems that you need to address.
Beyond just being gay?
If you're gay, then just be gay, right? Nobody's stopping you from being gay.
In the gender that you are? Or what about if you're a cross-dresser?
Then
be a cross-dresser?
Be a cross-dresser.
But you're still a boy or a girl.
Yeah, you're still a boy. So what that means, if you want to dress, if you want to be a cross-dresser, be a cross-dresser, right? People will make fun of you maybe, and you should just accept that.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, cross-dressing was like a popular thing. There is a video online of Donald Trump being a cross-dresser. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
You didn't know that?
No, not at all.
I'll show it to you. Hold on. This is going to be good. How do we...
Was it for a Halloween party, or was it...
No. Him and Rudy Giuliani.
ARC. We're on ARC.
Him and Rudy Giuliani are cross-dressers. I guarantee you this.
Was it a recent video?
Or no. This is from... Video? This is an ancient video.
From the 70s or the 80s or the 90s?
90s.
I see.
Trump and Rudy Giuliani.
It's continuing down there, yeah.
Giuliani, cross-dresser.
This should be good.
There you go.
We must commit ourselves to unconditional...
I'm sorry, maybe Trump in this case is not the cross-dresser, but he's definitely hanging out with Giuliani, who is.
Victory against them!
There's lots of buzz over Rudy Giuliani's impassioned speech at the Republican National Convention.
There's no black America! There's no white America!
Okay.
It's Giuliani showing his softer side dressed in drag in a comedy skit with Donald Trump.
You know, you're really beautiful.
The spoof was filmed 16 years ago when Giuliani was mayor of New York for a charity dinner, so it was all in good fun.
Oh, you dirty boy! You... Oh!
Trump is definitely gay.
So first of all, yeah, Trump is definitely gay, as you can see there. And by gay, I literally mean he's a homosexual. And more importantly, as you can see, he has no problem with trans people.
Yeah.
So this is all political. I think this is literally just appealing to his base. And the reason why people in his base so hate trans people and so agitated by trans people is because so many people in their base, their sex, their gender, like what they identify, man or female, that's like all they have. Mm-hmm. They have nothing else, right, in their life to be proud of. Mm-hmm. They're losers, but they're like, I'm a male loser, right? So I need to stick with my male values and I need to protect my manliness, right? So they're really, really, really scared of trans people, right? But this is not to insult any trans people, but seriously, if you feel like you're a guy and you need to be a girl, or if you're a girl and you need to be a guy, and you're starting hormone therapy and you're starting to do these transitional things where you're going to like have surgery, you're going to take estrogen or testosterone and fuck up your hormone panel, please, for fuck's sakes, find yourself a psychiatrist.
A good therapist
who deals with these kinds of issues, a non-woke therapist, right? And talk to them first. You probably don't need this. Maybe you are gay, and then there's nothing wrong with being gay. Maybe you have some underlying psychological issues that you need to work through. But this stuff is very unhealthy for you. Like, taking these hormone blockers and taking exogenous hormones is really, really bad for you. And I know you feel horrible. I know you feel terrible. I know you feel uncomfortable in your body. But you have to understand, there's people in this world, I don't know what I just did. There's people in this world who feel uncomfortable for many different reasons, and they're actually insane, right? Mm-hmm. By insane, I don't mean like you're a bad person, you're an insane person. By insane, I mean like there's something wrong with their psyche, there's something wrong with their mind that's causing them harm, right? Maybe there are some people who have clinical depression, right? We don't say to clinically depressed people, oh, you should lean into your clinical depression or something like that, right? And we should empower and accommodate your clinical depression. We help people with clinical depressions. There are people in this country, not in this country, people all over the world who are born with something called, I don't remember it, but like it's like this disability disorder. And this disability disorder, it's like where they are born convinced that they should have some kind of disability. Like the most common of these is people who are born and they just unironically, like not because they're playing a character or something, or like for political reasons, I don't even know why I'm saying that. Like these people, they feel incredible pain, psychological pain, as a result of the fact that they have both functional legs, that they're fully capable of walking, or that they're fully capable of or they have two arms. And these people literally like amputate their own functional legs or arms, right? Mm-hmm. Because they are in extreme levels of pain, of psychological pain, because they have two functional legs. Mm-hmm. There are human beings in the world who would like be so happy to be able to have two functional legs and walk. And then there's other people in the world who are born with two functional legs, and it's driving them insane that they have functional legs.
How do they ever find a doctor that is willing to do that surgery?
A lot of them don't. And this is why they do it themselves, by like laying underneath trains. These people are suffering from psychological disorders, and these psychological disorders are studied, and people try to help them.
I see.
Being trans is like that. You have a dick and you want to cut it off. Your psychology, your brain is telling you something wrong. Like it's lying to you. It's misleading you. And you need help. You don't need a law that protects trans people. You need help. Mm-hmm. And you should get that help, and you should be happy. And you should be, if you're gay, then you should be gay. We allow gay people to marry. We allow nobody discriminates against gay people. A gay person is the CEO of the largest company in the world, Apple. Tim Cook is gay, right? Yeah. There is nothing wrong with being gay. There's nothing wrong with being straight. and liking to dress, being a cross-dresser. You want to be a cross-dresser? You just saw Rudy Giuliani. I don't think anybody's going to give a fuck if you're a cross-dresser. Just stop with the whole hormone things and stop pushing these hormones on children. This is a bad idea. Like, we're going to look back at this and we're going to be like, this is a really, really stupid idea. We're going to look back at all these hormone therapies that we're doing right now, like 100 years from now, and we're going to look at them like we're going to look at people in the 18 and 1700s who were putting lead in their face to make their complexion more white. This is stupid. Don't do this. At the same time, I don't agree with this because he's only doing it to pander to his pathetic little base.
Gotcha.
Let's go on.
So thank you for the service of the public service announcement. You should really check that out or look into that if you do suffer from gender dysphoria.
Yeah. And see, here's the thing. Nobody's doubting that you are suffering, right? If you have this gender dysphoria, some people are assholes and they'll be like, oh, you're just like a stupid faggot or whatever, right? But in reality, normal, reasonable people, they're not doubting the fact that you're suffering. It's just not the right solution.
Yep. As someone that suffers with mental health issues, I can agree with that. 9. Shall we move on?
Mm-hmm.
Terminating diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs. Ended federal DEI initiatives promoting merit-based treatment.
Good. That I agree with.
Did the government have a lot of DEI programs?
Yeah, it's like all those programs, like quota programs that they have and such. Bad idea. Don't like it.
If you're the most qualified candidate, you should get the job.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
10. Reinstating Schedule F for federal employees. Reduce job protections for certain federal employees involved in policymaking.
Okay.
This one's a little obscure. What does it mean?
I actually don't know. I haven't looked it up. What it means is now they're going to have less protections. But I want to see when this Schedule F was originally passed. And
ChatGPT might be of good help.
ChatGPT is going to be helpful. So can you go ahead and finish this? Ask it Schedule F for federal employees. What is it? When was it originally passed?
Oh, I need to.
Okay. What is it and when was it originally passed?
My keyboard is having issues.
Yeah. Our Bluetooth keyboard sometimes breaks out. What is it and when... oh, God damn it. Was it originally passed?
So Schedule F was reinstated?
Yeah, it says reinstated, so that suggests that it was passed originally at some previous time, right?
Did you need to run to the bathroom?
No.
Oh, I see. Schedule F, we shall read this, is a designation for a category of federal employees that was originally created through an executive order issued by President Donald Trump on October 21st, 2020. It was not passed as legislation by Congress, but rather implemented through executive authority.
Okay.
Key features. Purpose. Schedule F was designed to reclassify certain federal employees in policy-making positions, removing them from traditional civil service protections. This reclassification would allow these employees to be more easily hired and fired at the discretion of the administration. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Impact. Employees under Schedule F would lose many of the job protections afforded to other civil service workers, making them at-will employees. The intent was to give the president and agency heads more direct control over personnel involved in policymaking, arguing that it would increase accountability. Controversy. Critics argue that Schedule F undermined the merit-based civil service system, politicized the federal workforce, and risked replacing nonpartisan experts with political appointees. All possible.
All possible, yeah.
Status. Repeal. President Joe Biden rescinded the executive order establishing Schedule F on January 22nd, 2021, shortly after taking office. Discussion. There has been ongoing debate about reinstating Schedule F or similar measures, particularly among those who favor greater executive control over federal agencies. If reintroduced or reinstated, it would likely reignite debates about the balance between political control and civil service independence.
Interesting. Give me a second. Let me ask another question. Can you tell me more specifically what positions does this Schedule F affect? Let's see. What actual jobs does it apply to? So policymaking and advisory roles, positions that involve
formulating, recommending, or carrying out policy, roles that require a high degree of confidentiality or direct work with political appointees, senior bureaucratic roles, higher level positions within federal agencies that influence regulations or policy decisions. Examples include senior analysts, legal advisors, and economists working on agency policies, specialized experts in decision-making, roles requiring specialized expertise where their advice could substantially shape decisions, for instance, scientists, engineers, and other technical staff involved in creating or implementing policies, managers and supervisors overseeing teams or projects with significant policy or operational impact, and positions requiring confidentiality, jobs necessitating close alignment with the administration's goals due to the sensitive nature of the work. Notably excluded positions. Schedule F was not intended to affect lower-level federal workers performing routine tasks, which it really ought to. Employees not involved in policymaking, such as administrative support staff or operational roles, were excluded. This is so weird. Why didn't it? I think this sounds
No. It says that the Schedule F excludes these because we don't want. The whole point is like every time a new president comes in, you don't want to fire like 2/3 of the government and replace them, right?
Okay.
So if your job is to like maintain the parks department or something like that, then you have like the standard protections as opposed to at will protections. They can't fire you without a reason.
Okay.
I guess the individual department can still fire you, but that's actually interesting how positions were classified. Should
I read this? Mm-hmm. Agencies were instructed to review their workforces and identify positions fitting these criteria. Each agency had to submit lists of proposed reclassifications to the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, for approval. The lack of clear guidelines meant the scope of reclassification varied widely and was a point of criticism. In total, it was estimated that tens of thousands of federal employees, potentially as many as 50,000, could have been reclassified under Schedule F had the policy been fully implemented.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how this is going to affect. I'm guessing that he's just trying to put all his cronies in positions of power in the government. That's what is going to happen. But I'm actually kind of surprised because what... what protections do they have without Schedule F?
Well, I was going to ask you a question, sorry, before you ask ChatGPT another question. I was under the impression that each time we get a new president, they bring in their administration, right?
Yeah, they bring the administration, but they don't rehire 50,000 people, for instance.
I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why it's interesting. So let me ask this question. What protections do federal employees generally have without this Schedule F? How would a president, or for that matter, anybody in the government, go about firing a civil service worker? Let's see what it says. Because I think one of the problems with our government is that we don't fire enough people. Federal employees generally enjoy substantial protections under the civil service system designed to ensure the merit-based, nonpartisan workforce. These protections apply to most federal employees in the
competitive service and accepted service, excluding some high-level political appointees. Protections for federal employees. Job security. Federal employees cannot be removed arbitrarily. Termination requires a legitimate cause, such as misconduct, poor performance, or violations of regulations. Due process. Employees have the right to a notice of proposed adverse action, a chance to respond, and representation in defense. They can appeal adverse actions, demotions, suspensions, terminations to the Merit Systems Protection Board, MSPB, an independent body. Protection against political interference. The Hatch Act prohibits federal employees from engaging in certain political activities to ensure the workforce remains nonpartisan. Protections prevent employees from being fired.
Let's move on to this.
Whistleblower protections laws protect employees who report misconduct.
Okay.
Union representation.
Okay.
So they can be
firing a civil service worker, identify a cause, notify the review process, appeal. Okay, so you see, it's very hard to fire people right now. I would want to change that, but at the same time, I don't really like the politicization of this issue. Not too happy about this because I don't like the politicization, and I think that Trump is going to try to stack the government with a bunch of his people, essentially. But at the same time, our government is kind of operated pretty shittily at the moment, so maybe then when the next guy comes in, they'll be able to fire some more people under the same policy and get some good people in there. I don't know.
If it's an executive order, the next guy can just get rid of it.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And Congress, I think, can block this as well. I think Congress can block. Let's see. Can Congress block this order? I believe so. I wish. In fact, yes. Yes. Congress could pass a law explicitly prohibiting the creation of a new federal employees classification like Schedule F, or limiting the presidential authority to reclassify positions within the civil service. So,
and more easily, they can just pass like basically defund this effort. Like there's no funding for this effort. But it's congressional committees can investigate the executive branch's implementation of Schedule F and hold hearings to scrutinize its impact. Partisan
but
gridlock.
the problem is, since Congress can't pass anything without a veto-proof majority, right? So what that means is, in order for a bill to become a law, it has to pass both chambers of Congress, and then it has to be signed by the president. Since he's passing this Schedule F, obviously he's going to veto any law that blocks Schedule F.
Gotcha. And besides that, he also is has MAGA that has taken over Senate and Congress.
Yeah, so
the House of Representatives.
I don't know where we're gonna go with this, to be honest, but
at least for the next 2 years.
Let me see. So they have this law right here. This will the civil service system. Let me ask it one more question. What gives the president the authority to actually pass this kind of law, given the fact that the civil service system was originally passed by Congress and presumably has all these protections in it for the civil service employees? Why is he able to override the civil service reform of 1978? Which is what? Okay, let's see. You can read.
The president's authority to issue an executive order like Schedule F stems from the broad powers granted to the executive branch to manage the federal workforce under existing laws and the Constitution. However, the president cannot unilaterally override laws passed by Congress, such as the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, but can reinterpret or adjust their implementation within the bounds of delegated authority. Here's how it works. Authority to manage the executive branch, use of executive orders.
Yeah, I don't care. Hold on a second. So this means that this can still be challenged in court and overturned if somebody successfully argues that this Schedule F violates the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. Okay, so we'll just challenge it in court, and if it violates, if they can figure out how they can prove that it violates the Civil Service Act of 1978, then it will be blocked and he will be shut out of luck. And if it doesn't violate the Civil Service Act of 1978, then maybe we should pass better fucking laws. So, not too happy about this in general, but I think it's just inevitable at this point. I mean, he wants to push in all of his people. I really hate the kind of people he's pushing through. They're really stupid. I'm sorry, but like every single cabinet person he's choosing is really dumb. But it is what it is until we have elections in 2026 and maybe change the composition of Congress yet again.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep going to the next one.
11. Freezing federal civilian hiring. Paused hiring to assess and restructure the federal workforce.
They already have way too many fucking people working for them, to be honest. Like, the one thing that I'll give not credit, but I'll give Trump is the federal government is incredibly inefficient.
Are they?
Well, we on our trip recently, we toured, I'll give this as an anecdote. We toured NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Mm-hmm. And while we were touring it, the tour guide proudly told us about how in the Johnson Space Center, they have like this large fleet of beach cruiser bicycles.
Old Schwinn bikes.
Old Schwinn bicycles. And they pay people, like they pay federal employees, hence the federal civil service hiring freeze. They pay federal employees to use little toolkits and go from bicycle to bicycle, maintaining these bicycles for the last 50 years. And these bicycles are intended for people to go between different buildings at NASA. NASA's facility in Houston is quite large, with many, many buildings. And if you need to go from one building to another, it makes sense to grab a bicycle that's by the door and just drive to the other side. And the tour guide was proudly telling us, and these bicycles are old, but we maintain them diligently. So as a result, some of these bicycles, who knows who might have sat on them? Maybe Armstrong has sat on one of these bicycles. And I'm like, this is really fucking stupid. This is so incredibly fucking stupid and so incredibly fucking wasteful. Because for the amount of money that you're paying these government employees with government employee benefits and government employee inability to be fired, the amount of money you're paying these people to maintain these bicycles, right? Let's say they just have 3 employees doing it. Just 3. 3 employees doing this is $300,000 a year. You can buy a fucking fleet of brand new bicycles for $300,000 a year.
Definitely.
Brand new electric bicycles too.
Listen, I thought that they didn't have exclusive bicycle mechanics, that they did other things as well. Not
yes,
just
but
repair.
if you compare, first of all, you would think that, and yet on our tour, as we were randomly on a random weekday touring the facility, I saw a guy repairing a bicycle.
You did?
I did. I specifically saw a guy having one of these bicycles flipped over, and he had his little toolbox there, and he was replacing the chain on it.
Okay.
So something tells me that these assholes burned through a lot of budget maintaining bicycles that should have been thrown away 20 years ago.
Oh, God. Okay.
So this is very, very inefficient. The government does a lot of things very inefficiently, and the feminization of the workplace will probably explain to you why. It has nothing to do with feminism or women. It's more complicated, so just wait for it.
Shall we move on then?
Let's move on.
Okay. 12. This is interesting. Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, WHO, directed the U.S. withdrawal from the WHO. So this is
don't know.
basically giving NATO a big fuck you.
The WHO though is kind of fucking useless. Like, I don't like this because MAGA people like it, and fuck MAGA people. Like, I don't like it because of the reason why they're doing it. They're doing it all for like globalization is bad, NATO's bad, you know who is bad. Why not NATO, United Nations. Everything's bad. Everything global is bad. So like, fuck those people. But at the same time,
you're right. I'm
fuck
sorry,
the
I
world.
misspoke.
Yeah, but at the same time, fuck the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Like, because those people, the amount of money that they literally burn and put in the pockets of administrators of that organization is fucking staggering. So I don't know. Like,
they do have to hold a lot of like galas and stuff to raise
exactly.
money.
Fuck those people. Like, I hate the intentions behind this, but I also hate this organization.
Okay, let's move on.
Next.
13. Investigating trade deficits. Ordered analysis of trade practices with China, Canada, and Mexico.
The funny thing about this is he's literally the previous guy who finished our previous deal with Canada and Mexico. He was so proud of it. And now he's like, no. Some idiot passed this law with Canada and Mexico that allows them. Like, you were the fucking idiot who did it. And he already implemented tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Did you hear that? That's going to be one of the...
Well, it's the next one.
Oh, okay. There you go.
14. Imposing tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Plan to implement tariffs on imports starting February 1st, 2025.
Yeah, so that's coming up right away. And
say hello to more expensive avocados and berries. Whatever else we get from Mexico. We get a lot of agricultural
I feel like
goods.
they're going to... I don't know what they're going to do because we have a trade agreement with them. We'll see.
Why are his supporters pro basically raping Canada and Mexico, who are like number one trade partners?
They are pro... They're just... Well, first of all, a lot of his supporters are just white supremacists.
Okay.
So that's why they hate Mexico.
Canada is white.
They're not even white supremacists. They're just like American supremacists. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I hate his people. I hate MAGA. This is just appealing to MAGA. And this is just appealing to MAGA. I don't know how it's going to get resolved. I'm pretty sure there's going to be some lawsuits involved in this. So let's wait to see how this unfolds.
Gotcha. 15. Granting pardons related to January 6th Capitol riot. Issued pardons to individuals convicted in relation to the 2021 incident.
Yeah. Garbage people engaged in garbage activity now get pardons, like, as to be expected.
I learned a new word from the Start Here podcast that a lot of the people got commuted if we couldn't just like pardon them, they got commuted sentences or whatever, which means they can't expunge their record, like they have the record of having been imprisoned or whatever. But they don't have to be imprisoned.
Okay,
basically.
that's fine. This is going to happen. They're his people, obviously. He's a insurrectionist piece of shit, and he pardoned other insurrectionist pieces of shit. So it's to be expected. All I'm saying is, like, guys, just prepare because, or if you're MAGA, then fuck you. I'm gonna be fighting against you 4 years from now. But we're gonna have a civil war 4 years from now because he's not gonna live voluntarily.
Okay. Let's hope he dies.
And by the way,
he dies before then.
No, actually, I don't hope. I actually hope that the Civil War starts because I actually want to. I want to have a nice little conflict. Let's see who wins.
Okay, let's move on. I have no response to that. We'll see. Let's move on. 16. He renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
Changed the name for federal use.
Yeah, this is pretty stupid because it only affects like federal documents. Like nobody else in the world has to abide by this. None of the other states have to respect this. This is literally just for. This is kind of like when Russia claimed that it owns Crimea and occupied Crimea, but nobody else recognizes them. But this is like 10 times less than that because he doesn't even own the Gulf of Mexico, now the Gulf of America. The other funny thing is, like, the Gulf of Mexico is not even named after the country of Mexico, for fuck's sakes. It's named after a city. It's named after Mexico City.
Okay.
which was a city there before Mexico was a country. So,
Oh, I see.
so the Gulf of Mexico was the Gulf of Mexico even before Mexico was a country.
Fair enough. He renamed Mount Denali to Mount McKinley to restore the mountain's former name in federal documents.
Okay, so this I want to look up because I think it's even stupider. I fucking hate him. for this.
He was very proud of this, and I was thinking, is that Mount Denali in Alaska or like Washington State?
Yeah,
or,
let me ask
that's
ChatGPT.
Alaska, right?
Let me ask ChatGPT.
And why is this important?
Donald Trump has renamed yet again Mount Denali to Mount McKinley. Can you tell me two things? First of all, can you tell me where Mount Denali is located? And then tell me what is the history of its name, because I do believe that it has been named Mount Denali before as well, hasn't it? And who the fuck is McKinley? I think it's one of those Civil War assholes.
No, he was a president.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, who the fuck is Denali?
I don't know. I thought it was a place.
Is the highest peak in North America, standing 20,000 feet. It is located south of central Alaska, near the center of Alaskan Range. So you're right, in Alaska, within Denali National Park.
Yeah.
He hasn't renamed that. And presence history. Indigenous name. For thousands of years. Okay, go ahead.
The Koyukon Athabascan people have called the mountain Denali, meaning the high one or the great one, Mount McKinley. In 1896, a gold prospector named William Dickey named the peak Mount McKinley in support of then presidential candidate William McKinley. This name was officially recognized by the federal government in 1917. Restoration to Denali. In 2015, the U.S. Department of the Interior...
Oh, this is just his little pissing contest with Obama. I swear to God, I just wish, like, in that thing, like, what would happen? Like, seriously, Biden would pardon Obama, right? He could have just, like, swung his face and hit Trump in the face as hard as he can when he was sitting next to Trump in that
the Jimmy Carter funeral.
The Jimmy Carter. How fucking wonderful would that be if we lived in the kind of nation where Obama actually grew some balls and fucking killed Trump right then and there, or like just fucking punched him in the face and broke his nose right then and there. How awesome would it be? What would happen to Obama? What, are they going to arrest him? Fine, they arrest him. Biden would pardon him immediately.
That's true. That's true.
Why are we not living in a nation where people do that? Because we live in a nation of pussies, of fucking weak-ass pussies.
It could have been Biden's last pardon. He pardoned all his family members in the last 20 minutes of his presidency.
Yeah, no, God, we should have a much more animosity in our nation. We shouldn't have this whole thing. Oh, we're gonna all live alone and sing kumbaya songs, because the nation has been taken over by assholes. Next, let's keep going.
18. Restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Oh, I wanted to say something. I'm sorry, before we moved on from 17.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did not know that William McKinley actually did not become president. I think in yesterday's speech he said, "Oh, McKinley was an excellent president." I think he actually called him a president yesterday, Trump.
Yeah, well, he's an idiot. I don't even know who the hell that was. Why are we celebrating him then?
Anyways, it makes the white supremacists happy.
But why? Okay, so who was this McKinley fellow?
A prospector.
Okay.
Oh, no. Presidential candidate William McKinley. A gold prospector named William Dickey named the peak Mount McKinley in support of then presidential candidate William McKinley.
Okay, so who the fuck was William McKinley? Who was William McKinley other than a presidential candidate? He was a president. The 25th president of the United States.
Oh, good.
Serving from 1897 until his assassination in 1901. Oh, probably a bad person. Presidency is notable for signing significant economic and foreign policy developments that shaped the U.S. in the late 19th and early 20th century. Early life and career, Ohio, blah, blah, blah. Elective president.
So he has a lot of like things. He, for instance, advocated and enacted the gold standard of 1900. He
championed protective tariffs.
Yeah.
Particularly the tariff which aimed to protect America and industries, but faced criticism for raising consumer prices. Oh, look at that! Just like what Trump is going to do.
Yep. I just don't understand how they will ever like reconcile the higher consumer prices at the store with their precious Trump president.
I really hope that whoever comes in next in 4 years renames it back just to fuck with him. Let's don't care about this. It's so inconsequential. Let's keep going.
But it's the small things that make his base feel special.
I know.
Anyways, 18. Restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. Aim to prevent government agencies from censoring lawful speech.
They couldn't do that before, so this is
What does that mean? Does that mean insurrectionists can? I don't know. What does that mean?
It means nothing, like, because aim to prevent government agencies from censoring lawful speech. They're already not allowed to censor lawful speech because lawful speech
falls into the First Amendment.
Lawful.
Yeah.
Right? So they can't censor lawful speech because it's lawful. And we have the First Amendment.
What is a negative view of this?
Why is it done?
Yeah, why did he...
It's just... Well, he's not restoring anything. It's just optics. This is a proclamation that has no practical application.
Gotcha,
it's just like, look at me. I did the thing that you wanted me to do.
Okay. Let's move on. 19. Ending the weaponization of the federal government. Directed agencies to cease using governmental powers for partisan purposes.
Yeah. This is the same as this.
Okay.
It's just for optics. He's just doing it to please his little retarded base.
20. Reevaluating and realigning U.S. foreign aid. Ordered a comprehensive review to ensure alignment with U.S. interests.
Don't think that that's the right way to think about aid, but at the same time, I do agree with that. We need to attach more strings to our aid. So, like, if we give people aid, we should be like, here's some aid. Here's what we want you to do, right? Not like a quid for a quo thing, but like, here's what we want to do, so you won't need aid in the future or something like that. So that's fine. I mean, whatever. I think this is fine.
Okay. 21 is related to 1. It's protecting the American people against invasion. Declared a national emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border.
It's basically related to...
Declaring a national emergency or something. At the southern border. Let's move on.
So I think he first declared the national emergency and then he authorized the troops.
Gotcha.
So whatever.
Okay.
We talked about that.
22. Unleashing Alaska's resource potential. Lifted restrictions on energy exploration in Alaska. This one relates to the fossil fuel infrastructure and
especially
China.
In the Mount McKinley, I'm sure.
Gotcha. 23. Restoring the death penalty and protecting public safety. Reinstated the federal death penalty for specific crimes.
Yeah, this is pretty stupid. Again, don't support death penalty in practice because we are really bad at judicial adjudication, and we fuck up all the goddamn time. No practical, or rather no ethical reasons, but a lot of practical reasons why this is a bad idea.
Okay. 24. Establishing the Department of Government Efficiency. Created a new department aimed at improving efficiency and reducing waste. Literally?
If he wasn't the one starting it, this would actually be a good idea. We have tremendous amount of waste, like I said, and we do need this. It's just that he's a bad person.
Yeah. Let's move on. 25. Defending women from gender ideology extremism. Recognized only 2 sexes affecting federal recognition and services for transgender individuals.
Okay, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Some of these are repetitive because he only has like 5 ideas, and he signed a lot of repetitive.
Gotcha. 26. Reforming the federal hiring process. Revised hiring practices to emphasize merit-based appointments.
It's part of the DEI initiative, like eliminating DEI initiatives. That all makes sense.
That makes sense. You do want to hire competent people. Memos.
Again, the only problem is that the kinds of people that they consider to be competent are actually highly incompetent, but generally speaking, it's a good idea. I think these are just memorandums, but you can read.
So, number 1 is application of Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act to TikTok.
Oh, yeah, he postponed the ban of TikTok by 75 days. The interesting thing that I think many people don't realize is even though TikTok has returned service in United States, they have not been restored on Apple or Google platforms. So if you have a TikTok app, then you can continue to use it, but you'll never be able to download a new version of the TikTok app. And if you delete it, I don't think you'll be. I'm not certain about that bit because Apple sometimes lets you re-download shit that has been removed from the Apple. No, that's not true because once it's removed, you may not be able to re-download it. And with Google, the same thing. You won't be able to re-download the TikTok app. So if you get like a new phone, for instance, you won't be able to transfer it onto your new phone. Mm-hmm. And I don't think TikTok is going to come back to Apple or Google platforms anytime soon without congressional approval, because this is one of those things where Congress has acted with very large majority, meaning something like 300 congressmen voted against. 300 House of Representatives voted against, or rather in favor of banning TikTok, and only like 80 voted against. And on the Senate side, only 18 voted against. And why am I having trouble with this? 82 voted in favor of banning TikTok. So as a result, this is very popular, very bipartisan, right? And the law has been passed in such a way that there's a fee structure, there's a fine structure that fines Apple and Google and other distributors of the TikTok software if they bring TikTok back on their platforms after January, whenever it was supposed to be
20th
yesterday. Right.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is so there's this fine structure, right? And what Trump said is he's not going to enforce any of the laws passed against TikTok for 75 days. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So he's not going to pass this like TikTok Act. He's not going to enforce it for 75 days, right?
Right.
But the way the law was passed originally, it has enforcement window for up to 5 years after its passage. So as a result, what happens is, let's say he says, oh, I'm just not going to do anything about this TikTok law. I'm not going to enforce it. So you can just bring it back on your platform. And let's say Apple and Google start hosting TikTok's app again, right? Mm-hmm. But then 4 years from now, when we, for some reason, don't have a civil war and instead have peaceful transition of power, which is highly unlikely, and as a result, a new president comes to term, right? Let's say it's a Democrat, and let's say as a big fuck you to Trump, what they do is they say, oh, now we're going to enforce this law. Mm-hmm. This law has provisions that they can retrospectively enforce it to this January 20th, mm-hmm. right? So what that means is both Apple and Google will be on the hook for all the fines for breaking this law back in the day under Trump. And the fines are huge. The fines are like $800 billion.
Oh, wow.
Because it's $5,000 per instance installed.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was more like $500, not $5,000.
No, it's $5,000 per
Yeah.
instance installed.
Okay. Gotcha.
So you multiply that out, it's like $800 billion if you assume 100 and something million subscribers.
Did you hear that Donald Trump wants the American government to buy 50% of TikTok in a joint venture?
In a joint venture with whom?
With the American government
And whom?
and whoever owns TikTok. I'm not sure who the parent company of TikTok is. ByteDance, but is ByteDance a Singaporean company or is it a Chinese company?
No, it's a Chinese company. The question is, when you say in a joint venture, so like...
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump knows what it means, other than, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if the American government owned a social media platform? We don't have that.
Why? Why would we want to own social media? No, that's bad. He just wants to use it for his own like, I mean, again, this is all heading to fascism, by the way. Like, right? He wants to now own a social media company so he can have even more fascism in this country. No, this is a terrible idea. This is not. Nobody's going to support him on that.
I'm sure Elon Musk is like, yes, do it.
Oh, fuck Elon Musk. I hope he dies in a fucking fiery crash. I hope one of his rockets falls on his head.
Shall we move on to 2?
Anyways, yeah, let's move on to 2.
America First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State.
I'm sorry, let me pause this for a second. So just to say, from the above, don't expect TikTok to come back anytime soon. I don't think Trump is going to do anything about it. But just so you know why it's such an important thing, and why the people in government actually passed this law, because when this whole thing started to happen, and they said that that they will force the, what do you call it, the sale of TikTok, it was specifically excluded from TikTok, from the sale, that TikTok will sell to them. So the sale would be for the application, for the front end of the application, and for the user base, and for the servers and stuff, right? But not for the algorithm, not for the recommendation algorithm that TikTok uses. Because the recommendation algorithm that TikTok uses, the Chinese Communist Party has declared to be a national secret and in the national interests. Mm-hmm. That should make you really, really concerned about what the fuck is inside that algorithm. Mm-hmm. So the recommendation algorithm that recommends you videos and stuff after you watch some videos on TikTok, CPP says, Chinese Communist Party says, that's important to our national security. You can't have it.
I see.
How can it possibly be important to their national security unless they're fucking with it somehow? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So unless they're, promoting trans videos to our younger audience to make them all trans so we would be less competitive on the world stage, how exactly can it be possibly against, the interests of China to sell that algorithm? It's just a recommender algorithm. There is nothing special about it. So this should really make you think like, this is really suspicious. Maybe we should have banned TikTok. Like, this is a good idea.
Gotcha.
Anyways, I don't like TikTok. Don't like people who are on TikTok. Fuck them. We have other platforms. Quite honestly, we don't need it. And China bans a lot of our social media networks. Why shouldn't we ban one of theirs?
Tit for tat. Makes sense. Shall we move on to 2?
Yeah, let's move on to 2.
America First Policy Directive to the Secretary of State. Instructed the State Department to prioritize policies that advance U.S. interests.
Okay. I mean, makes sense. I have no problem with that. I mean,
But that's obvious, right? Like, you have a Secretary of State so that they advance your interests first.
this is also one of those pandering things for his base. Like, it has no legal teeth. It doesn't mean anything. It's just like, America first.
It's a great proclamation.
It's a
Okay.
proclamation. Yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
it's a memorandum.
3. Holding former government officials accountable for election interference. Initiated reviews and potential actions against former officials and implicated in election interference.
This is him still claiming that he didn't lose the 2020 election. This is him pretending that he didn't lose the 2020 election.
That is bullshit. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck this guy. This is why I think Obama should have punched him in the face.
4. Clarifying the military's role in protecting territorial integrity. Outline the military's responsibilities in supporting border security. Does that mean he just allowed the military to shoot people on sight?
I don't know what he outlined. I think it's like literally just said it's the job of the American military to protect the border. I think this is fine. Like going back to the original border question, I think this just same thing, more of the same thing. So overall, nothing nothing stunningly terrible has passed so far. A lot of pandering to his base. Some things that make sense to me. Some things that don't make sense to me. The one I'm concerned about, I think this is going to be like him trying to undermine things for the 2028 election, which I don't think we're going to have without a civil war. And other than that, let's see. Everything else I think is reasonable. This I'm not so happy about. There's some things that are kind of like worrisome. A lot of stupid things.
Mr. Rennie, tell me what would be the consequences of designating the cartels in South America and Mexico and Central America as terrorist organizations? What does that spell for like our relationship with Mexico and South America, if anything?
I don't know, to be honest. Like I part of me thinks that this is all for show. It's also possible that there's some kind of legal dealio that he's trying to push through, where this would allow him to use the American military to go after the cartels, perhaps.
Okay.
Maybe that's what he's aiming at. I think this is pointless because I think cartels are dying all on their own, pretty much, due to fentanyl. So they're dying all on their own but they're being replaced by smaller organizations. We can actually go into that at some point, but I was going to say we've been streaming for about 2 hours and 20 minutes now. And we had on our agenda the idea to answer some questions, but I do need to take a phone call that I just had come in. So maybe we can cut out for the day. We spent like a really long time going through these. And we can pick it up tomorrow with talking about
Feminization of the workplace.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
In ACA.
Perfect.
Hopefully you guys don't miss us and don't mind.
We'll cover the news tomorrow faster, or not at all.
Yeah, but again, what are you here for? I mean, you're here primarily for listening to me spew bile and hatred towards everybody in the world. So I think you got plenty of that today.
And to hear me be a naive unicorn.
And to hear Mrs. Bear being a naive unicorn. All right. Should we answer at least one question from our 100 questions?
Sure.
Let's see. Oh, great. No, this is like a complicated one.
Is cancel culture a positive or negative phenomenon?
Definitely a negative phenomenon, right? Like
because it limits your freedom of speech.
But that's kind of limited. Should prostitution be legalized and regulated? Okay, yeah, this one is good. Should prostitution be legalized and regulated? Let's get this one. I say yes. Selling is legal. Fucking is legal. Selling fucking should be legal. Not my joke. George Collins' joke. Okay.
I feel like as a female, it undermines the work of other females who put a lot of effort into getting boyfriends and husbands, you know?
And who are those females?
I don't know. I'm sure there are some
Okay.
fellow unicorns out there.
All
Okay.
right. I mean, even then, if you legalize prostitution, right now it's illegal, right? But it's still universally available, and it's also legal in some states, right? Like in Nevada.
Is it?
Well, yeah, in Nevada it's legal.
Okay.
It's not legal in.
Maybe it's legal in Las Vegas, but maybe
No,
not.
it's actually the other way around. It's legal in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, it's legal in Nevada. It's not legal in Las Vegas.
Why is that? Because Las Vegas is a great market for it.
Las Vegas is a great market for it, but I think casinos want you to be gambling and not fucking.
Okay. Fair enough.
So
a conflict of interest.
Yeah, this is why a lot of prostitutes get in trouble in Las Vegas itself, because I'm trying to remember the county. What's the county that Las Vegas is in?
Not Cook.
No, that's Chicago.
I will look it up.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Whatever the county in Las Vegas is, it's legal in that county. Prostitution. It may not be legal throughout the entirety of Nevada, but it's legal in that county. But it is not legal in the city, in the Paradise City, which is actually the city of Las Vegas, right? The city of Las Vegas is not called Las Vegas. Did you know that?
Oh, what is it called?
Paradise City.
Oh. Okay, so it's in Clark County.
Clark County, yeah. So Clark County, it's legal. Prostitution is legal, but in Paradise City, prostitution is not legal. Paradise City is where all the hotels are. I hope I'm right about that. But it's not called Las Vegas. Anyways, and it seems to be working for them. So I say it's fine. I don't know.
If it's going to be done, I suppose, just like drugs, you should have it be legalized and regulated.
Yeah, it also prevents trafficking, because if it's legal, then it's just like with working underneath the table. Like illegal immigrants get abused, get paid less money, and they can't complain about it because what they do is illegal. So how are they going to go to the cops saying, hey, they're not treating me right? And the cops are going to be like, well, why should they be treating you at all? You shouldn't be here, right? So the same thing with prostitutes. Like if you're a prostitute and somebody like abuses you or doesn't pay you or hurts you or something like that, you can't go to the cops and say, hey, I'm a prostitute and this guy like assault, because then they're going to arrest you for being a prostitute.
Okay.
Right? But if you legalize it, then you have protections. You have rights. It's safer. It's nicer. It's better. You get like tested. Like, in order to be legal, you have to get STD tested, like maybe like once a month or something like that. Overall, I think.
Okay, so it exists, and regulating it just amps up the quality.
Okay, so that's my take. You take it as you will.
Okay,
it's not an issue I care greatly about, but I think since it's legal, or rather, since it exists, it should be legal.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe that
we should have recreational prostitution.
Recreational prostitution and recreational drugs, I'm all in favor of.
Okay.
Not because I want those things, but because I don't think the government should be limiting people's lives as long as they're not harming others. It's the government's job to prevent you from harming me, but it's not the government's job to prevent me from harming me.
That's true.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
We'll see you tomorrow.